Let's talk about the week in politics. Who has had a good week? Who's had a bad week? Who's got a shocking week ahead? And who should have a week off? Charlie Rowley, Conservative commentator, joins me now. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning. Hello.
Hello, good to see you. Right, I rather like this. I mean, the papers this morning full of politics, whether it's about moving closer to Europe, not to the US, Rachel Reeves on the offensive here, I'm going to deliver for working people. There's another story about Starmer being under threat from the far left. Who do you think's had a good week?
Well, my pick for the person that's had a good week is obviously Donald Trump. No one, I think, has had a better week than him, obviously only coming into office on Monday officially, but it feels like he's been there for a couple of years already, the amount of executive orders he's got through and all the decisions that he's made just in the first week of his second term. And I think he's made everybody breathe a sigh of relief. Yes, he's got a way of doing things that might not be the conventional way that you'd expect, but he's flown just in the last 24 hours to Los Angeles and had a public meeting with officials in LA and made it absolutely clear to them and showed them up basically that them saying that they've got to allow people to go back to their homes to clear the debris if they want to. They can't wait for some subcontracted, outsourced government contract to clear it away for them, which will take months and months. And he's really giving it to the mayor of LA. That's just an example in the first week, but tearing up things like the DEI targets and all the rest of it. And obviously we're seeing the continued release of hostages within Israel and from Gaza. A very good week for the new president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, he's hit the ground running, hasn't he? He said the golden era of America begins now. We will be the envy of every nation. I think what comes across loud and clear from him is it's America first, and that is welcomed by people across America. I think people in Britain are looking at this thinking, why can't we have some of that?
I think that's totally right. And what was telling also this week was when he talked to the people, the good people at Davos, looming over them in front of that online screen, basically saying that he was going to impose huge tariffs on the EU because they can allow American cars into the EU market, but not a single car. Sorry, the other way around. Not a single car from the EU seems to me to go into to the US. What he was effectively saying. And by the way, that prompted a response from Ursula von der Leyen to say, we must be prepared to negotiate with Donald Trump. We'll take him seriously and we need to negotiate early. Well, that just signaled to me, what kind of a bad deal have America had under the last administration then? If Ursula von der Leyen, the unelected president, but the president of the EU, is ready to move and is ready to negotiate and take a compromise, it just seems to me that they must have been having a pretty bad deal to begin with. And the Donald has come in to say, I'm putting America first, as you say, and I'm putting those bad deals right.
And he's going to basically reduce the cost of energy. Drill, baby, drill.
He is, yes, a contentious topic amongst people when it comes to net zero. But I think, look, he is prepared to obviously protect jobs. He's prepared to bring energy prices down for the American people. He's prepared to do obviously whatever it takes to make sure that the economy, the US economy, is stable and secure without all of this added cost to consumers, removing the US from the Paris Climate Agreement, where America will be shouldering again the burden of the world, something that he doesn't think is necessary. Other countries can step up and do their bit. But he is, as you say, putting America first.
I mean, it's interesting that the Paris climate change, also the WHO, he said, right, we're pulling out of that. Now this morning he's saying, well, we might go in, but I'm not paying the sort of money I was paying. Where do you stand on the fact that he's also rather overreaching here? Because, of course, he's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And he's got his eyes on Greenland, very upset with Denmark.
Yes, apparently a 45-minute tetchy phone call.
Yes.
With the Danish Prime Minister. Won't be the first, certainly won't be the last. I should imagine of world leaders. But I think, look, I think he is overreaching. But this is the thing: first impressions count. And yes, he's signing all these executive orders, some of which will be challenged through the courts, some of which, we must remember, won't be plain sailing and will be rebuffeted. That's just the nature of the beast. But what he's doing is demonstrating right from the off as any sort of CEO of a company should and would, any good leader should, is to say, this is the direction of travel. This is how optimistic and upbeat we should be about ourselves. This is all the good stuff that I'm doing to make sure that the American citizens and the Americans are protected, and as a country we're protected. And, it set the tone for what should be, even with difficult decisions, a positive 4-year term. Take that in contrast to this government that came into office within its first days, scrapped the Miranda plan, got rid of the winter fuel allowance for pensioners, taxed farmers, increased national insurance contributions on businesses, putting people out of work, seeing a flatline economy. To say that we're making all these difficult decisions, but sunny uplands are now upon us, or we should be taking a bit of Trump optimism, says Rachel from accounts. I mean, the contrast is stark, and that's why people are so fed up already of this Labour government, and why people would much rather see Donald Trump.
So who are you nominating to have had a very bad week?
Well, I'm afraid I think I just mentioned her there, poor Rachel. Not a good week, I don't think. No one will buy the hypocrisy of having, like Keir Starmer, trashed Donald Trump's reputation, criticised him no end. Is now sort of saying on the front page of the Sunday Times, I think it is, that we need a bit of Trump optimism. Well, goodness me, you don't say, Rachel. But that optimism doesn't come when you increase taxes on business when you said you weren't going to do it. When you put people's futures and people's jobs at risk, where people, particularly in the tourist and sector. As well as Sainsbury's, obviously announcing that there might be 3,000 job sort of cuts. People that work in bars, restaurants, those companies aren't taking on new people because it's just too expensive and it's such a burden to their business. And it is business that we always must remember is the the bedrock and the backbone of our economy. That's these are the people that employ another person, that grow and invest in technology, and couple that with, about up to 10,000, 11,000 millionaires leaving the country. These are the innovators. These are the people that can really afford to invest in Britain. Well, they're taking their business and their money up sticks and elsewhere.
So looking forward to next week, who should we keep an eye on?
Well, I think Nigel Farage next week for lots of different reasons. I think since he's come back from the US, we haven't heard, I don't think, too much from him, but I think this is a week where he can push back on some of the things that have happened in British politics over the last week. So he can really, I think, dominate on the economy, where Rachel's obviously been away, and respond to Rachel in terms of the article that she's suggesting about Trump optimism. I think he can push back against Wes Streeting, that gave a speech yesterday to a Labour, the Fabian Society, which is a Labour wing movement traditionally within the Labour Party, where they've had a bit of a row over the NHS, and Nigel making it clear that under a reformed government, if ever that to come to pass, and on the back of the polls, you can't rule anything out. But the NHS would be free at the point of delivery. That word delivery being the absolutely crucial word, because obviously if you are needed to be treated in the NHS, you will be treated. But ultimately, if you're actually not from this country, or actually if you do need to pay for some of your services, then you should. It is a national health service, not an international health service. I think that point is very well made, and something that most people, common sense minded people, will absolutely understand and get behind. And I just think there is an interesting vote, I think, that could be coming up in the Commons next week, which is about the WASPy women. These are women who sort of lost out their pension or had changes to their pension, have been calling for compensation because of that age change and missing out financially. The Labour Party campaigned no end to get them that compensation, no less, the half the cabinet posing with WASPy women and signs to say that they need to get their compensation. Labour totally turned their backs on them. It's called by the SNP. I would like to see what Nigel's view is on that. I think I might be right in saying that he has supported the WASPy women before, but we don't know, or I can't be sure. But I think anything that he can do in those three areas, I think will only increase the support that we're seeing for reform. And
finally, who do you think should have a week off?
Well, there was quite a few that came to mind. Half the cabinet, may as well sort of go and put their feet up. I think we'd do us all a favour. but I think I've come to the conclusion. I think it was Wes Streeting for me. Out of a crowded field, Ed Miliband was up there.
Yeah.
On the back of obviously this idea of the third runway at Heathrow coming down the track. Would he stay? Would he go? I mean, Sadiq Khan, Sir Sadiq, forgive me, opposed to it. Probably about the only thing that we might agree on. But Wes Streeting, I think, because the NHS has now ditched a number of its targets that I think just common sense that it shouldn't be a priority for the NHS, but he's sort of just late to the party at arriving on that. But also, I think this idea that what he was saying at the Fabian Society is that the left and the Fabian Society and the Labour Party needs to take on and tackle this idea of Nigel Farage and this rising populism. I think people still just don't get it. The reason why Reform are doing so well in the polls at the minute is because it's speaking the language of the people. It's articulating the mood of the country, particularly when you have these terrible atrocities, such as the case of Axel Ruda Cabana, where the government had withheld information from the public, which could have prevented some of the riots that you saw in the summer, because the public aren't stupid, David. I mean, I know you would agree with me on that. The public don't get it wrong all that often. And I think that this is just another politician that is blind to the reason why Labour won the big majority that they did on a very low turnout and on a popular vote, less popular than what Jeremy Corbyn got. I think Labour would be better placed, and Wes Streeting and his cabinet colleagues would be better placed at actually understanding the issues of this country, why things like immigration matter, why there shouldn't be a two-tiered criminal system in this country, and get on and tackling those issues rather than just attacking another political figure.